Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and the iPhone 16 Pro Max has been out for 6 months or 180 days. I've been using it full time since it launched, and it's had some great high points and some low points as well. I thought we'd talk about the hardware, durability, battery performance, display, and more, as I've been using this as my full-time device, like I said, during that time other than reviewing a few different phones in between. Now, when it comes to the hardware, the design is still high quality, but it's getting dated at this point. Now, we are supposedly getting a redesign next year with iPhone 17 or later this year, but it's not easy for others to know that this is actually a new phone. Compared to last year's phone, the iPhone 15 Pro Max, other than a couple different colors such as this blue titanium, you really wouldn't know the difference. So if you got the natural titanium, the only way to tell is really knowing that it has a button on the side for camera control. Other than that, most people wouldn't be able to tell. So the overall design I do think needs to change over time as it's just become a little bit stale, but it is reliable. It's what you expect from iPhone as far as the overall design, and it's easy to use. When it comes to the durability, well, this has to be one of the best attributes of the iPhone 16 Pro Max, as it's held up better than any iPhone I've used full time for a long time since I can remember. When it comes to the frame on the outside edge, despite it being black titanium here, you can see it looks pretty good. It does pick up fingerprints, of course, just from holding it here during the video, you can see those. And on the bottom, there's not really any scuffs or anything. Now, I haven't dropped it this year like I did with the previous generation. You can see that here where it was dropped, and in the corner it has a bunch of different nicks and things. But overall, it's been a pretty good design as far as holding up. I think they may have improved the durability, but when you set it down on a table, you can see some wear here. So that's just from setting it down on a table like this, walking away, picking it back up, and you can see the same thing around the camera. So on the camera edges, of course, if you were using a case, this wouldn't be an issue at all, but just using it without a case, I prefer the size of it, the lightweight of it, and just the thinness of it without a case and the texture. So I typically use it without a case to test for durability for videos like this, and you can see it's held up pretty well. When it comes to the display, the screen is held up better than any phone in recent memory. So let me wipe it off here as it does accumulate from some fingerprints again. And so you can see it actually only has a couple scratches, and that's much better than what we had before. Sure, it has some dust on it, but you can see there's a scratch right there, if you can see that, and maybe one down here, but that's about it. If you take a look at last year's phone, this thing is scratched up quite a bit. So you can see not only the fingerprints, but scratches all over it. Down in the bottom right corner, you'll see here compared to the 16 Pro Max, the 15 Pro Max, whatever they did with the glass, they've made it much more durable. So that's a great step in the right direction, and I hope we see the same glass or maybe even better in the next generation. Now, many of you are wondering, how is battery holding up after this amount of time? Well, the great news is, on this phone anyway, maybe they've made a larger battery than they said, but if we go to battery health, you'll see I have 100% with 150 cycles. This is much better than last year's battery and is lasting me through the year no problem. You can see more details on it here with Coconut Battery, where it shows that it actually has a capacity greater than 100%, and that's probably because the overall milliamp hours in the cell itself is slightly larger than the advertised amount, which makes it longer for it to drop below 100%. So that's great news. Now, we saw this in previous generations, and I think we're seeing this again. If we take a look at the overall battery life itself, it hasn't been great, but I do run a lot of betas on this phone, and you'll see I had 2 hours and 48 minutes of screen active time the other day and 4 hours and 4 minutes of screen idle time, and used about 75% of the battery. Yesterday was pretty terrible, 1 hour and 24 minutes using 50%. Today is 1 hour and 9 minutes using about, well, we're down to 93%. So it seems like it's getting better, but again, keep in mind I'm running a lot of betas. Those who are not running betas are easily getting through the day, getting 9 or 10 hours of screen on time typically. Now, the display hasn't changed much over the past couple of years. It's still a great display. It now goes down to 1 nit of brightness, so if that's something you wanted to utilize, you could in very dark environments, and it works great. But other than that, the display is nice and bright. It looks great, has great viewing angles, and works well in the sun. However, it's not as bright as some of the competition, and it does have PWM. Now, the PWM is not as bad as it has been in previous years, a few years ago, but overall, if you were sensitive to maybe the 15 Pro Max or 14 Pro Max, this phone will bother you as well. However, typically above about 39% brightness, the PWM rate is high enough that it won't bother hardly anyone, unless you're the most sensitive out there to PWM, which can cause you to feel nauseated or give you headaches or eye strain, you typically won't be bothered by this display. Just keep it above 39% brightness and that problem goes away typically. You can't see it at 240 frames per second slow motion. You can only see it at different shutter speeds, and that's when you see it. So this is up there with some of the others. However, it doesn't have the features like the OnePlus 13 where it goes to an extreme rate to really help with eyes, but that does use a lot more power. As far as the 5G connectivity, well, when it's working, it's fast and reliable. Many people this year have had issues with Wi-Fi and connectivity, and my 5G connectivity is very hit or miss. Sometimes it works great. I'll look at my wife's phone that's on the 16 Pro, and she's on public versions, and she'll have 1 or 2 bars more than me with the same carrier in the same location. So I'm not sure what's been going on with this, whether it's just me running betas or the overall reliability. But within speed test, if we go ahead and run it on 5G UC, I generally have okay rates. If I go closer to the city that's local to me, Charlotte, I can get really crazy speeds, but you'll see here, it's taking a moment for whatever reason, and this is what I mean. Not only do I have 3 bars, it's just not connecting for some reason. So there we go. It took a moment, and then it's like it just enabled. I'm not sure what's going on here, but like I said, when it works well. With just a couple bars, we're at 250 megabits per second, so that's pretty good. And if, like I said, if I drive closer to the city, I can upload videos on this, use this as my full-time connection without an issue if I need to. I did that last year when we had a power outage, and I was able to use the phone to upload some of my videos just driving to a nearby town with great signal. So you'll see I have 10 megabits per second up or so. So it's not incredible. Wi-Fi is great. Again, some people are seeing this disabled. I've seen it sort of disconnect for no reason before. And if we go back into speed test, Wi-Fi 7 is great if you have that option, and you can see it here. So again, let's run the speed test, give it a second, and we should get 1,000 or so. So 1,000 down by about 40 or so up. So it's cable internet, unfortunately. I wish it was a little bit faster, but we're almost at 1.2 megabits per second or 1.16 megabits per second. So pretty fast overall. And again, you'll see the upload speed here at about 40, so 35 to 40. So great speeds, Wi-Fi 7 is great, but again, sometimes it disconnects for no reason. When it comes to performance and reliability, well, speed and performance is fast, typically to the point where you don't notice it. But software has been sort of lacking optimization lately, and generally it's smooth, but then occasionally you'll get micro stutters, whether that's scrolling in ProMotion. Some people claim this isn't up to 120 hertz. Others claim that it is, but it does ramp up and down as needed. But I find it's generally smooth, but then occasionally you'll go into music, give it a second, swipe home, and it will stutter as you close the app. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I'm not sure why, but that's definitely an issue many people have been having. So you'll see it's loading nice and fast now. If we go into Mercury weather, go into music again, go back into podcasts, go back into maybe settings, we can go back and forth pretty quickly in general, and it seems to stay fast, but then occasionally it just slows down, and sometimes opening an app can take a few seconds, or sometimes doesn't open at all. Again, this is definitely an issue that's related to software, not hardware. Now, you also don't expect this from Apple when you're running this device. We have 8 gigs of RAM now. We have their latest A18 Pro processor at 4.04 gigahertz. It's super fast, but then again, it just comes down to programming. Apple's been having some issues lately, and it seems to be affecting everything. So whether you're playing a game or just going into something simple like a new app like Invites, in general, it's an okay experience. It's not what it used to be, but that's not the hardware itself. As far as thermals and heat, well, I do think this has been getting better. So the overall heat right now is nice and cool. So I almost dropped it there, but the heat is nice and cool. You can feel it. It doesn't typically go above about 100 degrees, and that's while charging. Sometimes it will. You could see that was thermally limited there in settings. Here, if we go back to the last 24 hours, you can see that here where it held that a little bit, but sometimes it's thermally limited. But again, that's Apple regulating it to make sure that it doesn't get too hot. So the phone overall, unless you're in a really hot environment, stays nice and cool generally. And again, if you're on betas, sometimes it will heat up a little bit more. Wireless charging seems fine for me as well. You saw my battery health. All I use is wireless charging, whether that's in my car or on the nightstand next to my bed at night. I use a MagSafe wireless charger that charges at 15 watts, and I've had no issues. So generally, or up to 25 watts in some cases, so I've really had no issues with it whatsoever. When it comes to the camera, it's really great, especially for video. I've filmed many different videos using the iPhone camera. This one is not filmed with that. This one's filmed with a red camera, but you can see that here if I spin it around. Go back to photo, and here's another problem we're seeing. We're in the camera, it's not doing anything. So again, another software bug. It took a moment, and you can see the camera overhead, but typically I'll film with an iPhone if I'm outside, and most people can't tell the difference. They think the quality is great, the video quality is great, and the audio quality is great as well. Sometimes I'll just use the audio from this and have no issues with it. So this is a great camera overall. Some of the photos are questionable, and some of the features compared to some of the competitors out there, the sensor isn't the greatest compared to some of the others. Some of the algorithm is odd, but we do have the option to adjust it this year with the little undertones or standard tones here and set those however we'd like. So if you want the camera to look a specific way, you can really adjust it this year where you couldn't before. Now with camera control, this is something that I've found that I only use for one purpose. I use it to open the camera. So if I have my phone locked, I'll pick it up, press the button, and then unlock it. That's the only thing I use it for. And the reason for that is I find that if I take photos using camera control, they come out shaky. I've tried it over and over throughout the year, and typically they come out shaky and I don't get the framing that I want. But if I just tap on the screen, I can hold steady. So that's something that I find isn't that great. Of course, with zooming, I thought maybe I would use it with video, and I find I don't use it at all. Of course, you can turn it off if you'd like, and I do use the action button, and I use it for one thing, and that's the flashlight. So you can use it for that, of course, turn the flashlight on and off. I do use it for that all the time, and then press and hold camera control for Apple Intelligence. I don't think Apple is typically known for adding buttons. In fact, they typically remove buttons. So to have them add camera control, which seems like a needless button to me personally, I think was a mistake. But let me know what you think of that. When it comes to daily use, typically this is just easy to use and it works. I have no issues with it whatsoever generally until you do. Then you have some software issues, and I talk about that in weekend follow-up videos going over bugs and more. But generally, I use this for everything from banking to photos to the camera to music to Safari to messaging, and I use it with an Apple Watch sometimes, and just use it for everything seamlessly. I use it with a Mac typically, and just having it go through the Apple ecosystem is great. If I get a message here, I'll get it on my watch, get it on my iPad and my Mac. So to have that, and even Vision Pro, it will go across all of those, and it works great. As far as the overall speakers, well, there's no issues with the speakers. They still sound great. I've had no durability issues with them or degradation in sound quality or anything like that. And they're nice and loud, so no issues with those. And iOS 18 and the recent issues with bugs and optimization are really what's hurting a very solid phone and great hardware. The software is what was once the most impressive thing about Apple, and then the iPhone 16 Pro Max I thought would be an outstanding phone given its hardware. However, it is still great hardware, recently let down by software and even missing features once promised, such as Apple Intelligence's Siri update. So lots of odd things going on with Apple this year. I do expect them to fix this. I'm hopeful that they'll actually change this and update it. And iOS 19 is said to be a big redesign. So maybe that's where their focus is, and they've just let the bugs slip on iOS 18 to fix that. As far as the overall satisfaction of using the device, well, I'm hit or miss with it. I think this is getting old. I feel like I've been using the same phone with an additional button for the past few years now. While I do appreciate the titanium frame and the camera as far as the video quality and ProRes and all of those things, I'm really just disappointed by the software at this point, and I would like a new design as Steve Jobs refreshed it every couple of years, from the 5 to the 5S, 6, 6 Plus, 7, we even got a slight refresh. It seems like it's just slowed down over time, and I think they should change it every couple of years to keep it fresh. So if you're wondering if you should upgrade to the iPhone 16 Pro Max at this point, I would probably wait personally at this point in the year. September is when we'll get the iPhone 17 Pro, 17 Pro Max, 17 Air, and regular 17. And given that information, we're supposed to get a redesign. Apple will have that designed for iOS 19. Hopefully we'll have some more features. And unless you can get this free, I probably would wait until iPhone 17 comes out. Now at this point, I think it is a good phone. I'll continue using it as my main device, but let me know your thoughts on it. If you've got one, if you've been using it full time, and what you think of it at this point. Do you think Apple should redesign it like I do, or do you think they should just keep the consistent design and make their software great? Let me know in the comments below. Of course, I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do, and if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.